Welcome back, everybody, to the Brazilian Dragon podcast. Today, we are talking about the movie that is number one at the box office, Challengers, with Zendaya, Mike Faist, and Josh O'Connor. It is the tennis movie of our generation, and I am so excited to chat about this movie. I have so much to say, but I am not alone. My name is Felipe, and today I am joined by the great LaTonya Starks. LaTonya, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, Felipe. Yay, we're doing this.
Yes. How are you doing? How was I think it's been about a year since the last time you've been on the podcast, which is honestly a crime against humanity
Yeah.
on my end. I'm sorry about that.
Well, I mean, we will be talking reparations later, but no, I've been doing okay. I've just been like a lot of people out there trying to navigate the twists and turns of the ending of post-show recaps and what that's going to mean for me personally and for podcasting. And I think that hopefully the listeners of this podcast will get some good news going forward as to what exactly is going on with me in podcasting. But yeah, just been trying to keep my head up and trying to wait patiently for challengers to hit the screen because we have been denied this movie for a long time.
Yes. So it was like first teased last year when the trailer broke the internet. I felt like everyone I was like, oh, this is a movie that seems interesting. It filmed in Boston, it has Zendaya. I kind of want to see it. I'm gonna try to avoid the trailer, like the Kevin Mahadeo. I'm gonna see the movie. I don't need to watch the trailer. Well, I could not avoid it because everyone was posting the photo. If you've seen this movie, you know the photo, the one with 3 tickets, challengers, please. And it was undeniable. So then I was like, I'm gonna watch the trailer regardless, I guess, because Twitter wants me to watch the trailer. And I've known a little bit about this movie since it was filmed in Boston, and I have some friends that were like tangentially connected, if not outright working on it, with the transfer of the production, like housing went to a lot of these people that a lot of my friends worked on a past project that they had the production housing of. So I've been excited for a minute. But what was your history? Was it just like the trailer when it dropped and then like just anxiously awaiting?
Yeah, I had heard some rumors on Twitter about how Zendaya was essentially developing this project with Luca Guadagnino, and that she was like the producer on it, and the one who was choosing the male talent that was being brought in. And there were some whispers early of like this being a Jacob Elordi vehicle, and then there was whispers about Timothy Chalamet being involved, as we all know. Like,
Sorry.
oh no. Wow.
I'm not a Chalamet guy. I liked him in Wonka, and that's like the first and only time I've ever really
Really?
liked him as a character.
Okay.
I know he's very talented. He's just not my jam.
Okay. Okay.
That was hateful of me. I didn't mean to
It
throw
wasn't
strays at this man.
hateful. It's fine. I'm sure that he's dealt with worse.
I just don't get it. I don't get it. But then someone told me today that they didn't get Zendaya, and I was like, excuse you?
Okay.
Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, no, I was just going to say that, that Timothy was another person who was thrown out there for potentially starring in this movie. And as we all know, we've got already 2 movies so far with Zendaya and Timothy Chalamet. And really, the Zendaya verse is just becoming like my favorite movies of the year so far that I've seen in the theaters. I didn't see this one in the theaters, I will say, but just like so far this year, my favorite movies have all involved Zendaya in some way. So seeing that she really got the chance to like put on her production hat and like, do some of the more behind the scenes stuff that we know she will inevitably be doing in her career on this movie is really interesting, and it really shows.
Yeah, not just has there been 2 Timothy Chalamet performances with Zendaya. There are also 2 Timothy Chalamet performances with Luca Guadagnino.
Exactly.
So, and honestly, I feel like Call Me by Your Name was kind of like the jumping off point for a young Timothy, like at least when he broke mainstream, I feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with what you said. Zendaya, like it felt like her fingerprints were all over this. I love her creative vision. She's also just like the best, and I've been following her career since I was a wee lad watching Shake It Up on the Disney Channel, and also some of those Disney interstitials that she was on. So I feel very adamant. Like I've been hyping up the Zendaya EGOT train since like we were 11, because I'm around the same age as her. So I
Okay.
I love Zendaya. I've been marching this drum forever, and I spoiler alert, I love this movie. It was phenomenal. Definitely, we're gonna find things to poke at, I'm sure, at a podcast. That's why we're here, of course. But I loved it, and I can't wait to talk about it with you. Overall, broad strokes, how'd you feel about it?
Broad strokes, it's a 3-act movie about 3 sets of tennis. But those acts also play out over multiple time periods. So that's really interesting, but it's essentially about 3 sets of tennis. I'm a huge fan of tennis, like used to wake up at 5 a.m. to watch Wimbledon when it was on what used to be HBO, like fan of tennis. So getting to see really just all of the different MJs in their tennis form is always great to see the prophecy be fulfilled. But tennis is just such an interesting and beautiful sport that I love to see the different ways that it's portrayed on film. So watching that was really cool. The score with Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, really like a lot of great propulsive beats. Like letting you know things are about to get intense now. We're about to take it up a notch or two. And then just like the overall chemistry of the main 3 characters at the heart of this movie is just so good that it defies traditional convention of just like, are they a throuple? I think that like that was the big thing that came out of us seeing the trailer initially, was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is the threesome tennis movie, right? And
See, I called it the bisexual tennis movie, but yes.
yeah, like no one knew what the relationships were going in to the whole thing, like how these people knew each other, how long they'd known one another. And I think it's so interesting that Zendaya, who plays Tashi Duncan, which is one of the most made for a movie names, that
That's a badass B, and she knows it. That like
yes,
she knew that name has power.
yes, my name is Tashi Duncan, and she's a homewrecker. And it's great. Like she's smarter than everyone else in the film, but also a huge tragic center of the movie in a lot of different ways. Um, all of those people are beautiful and they're very athletic and they're doing very despicable things to one another and for one another. And I am here for it.
Yes, please, more popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
No, I sorry, I was thinking about them.
You can't not. You have to, though, right?
Yeah,
Like, that's what this movie wants you to do.
this movie was made for the Bi Boys, and as
Yes.
the president of that club, I felt seen, I felt represented, I loved it, and I want more. Like I am
Yeah.
like, okay, more. This is like possibly the most represented I have ever felt as a bi man.
That's amazing.
And I love this. Um, I I love this movie so much. And like, you know, when you and are excited about a project, a movie, a TV show, or an album, this was like Beyonce's Cowboy Carter. This was something you were excited about, and it still delivered and it exceeded your expectations. To
And I'm
me,
going
at
to be
least.
watching it over and over again until my neighbors think there's something wrong with me.
This is gonna be one of my like. This is the by far the number one contender for favorite movie of 2024 so far. This is
Mm-hmm.
gonna be like a movie that defines the 2020s for me. I feel
Yes.
like like this is like I'm so excited to talk about this movie. I felt like I have so many thoughts about it, and I couldn't think of anyone better than you because you have good taste. Like I know that I have a wackadoo taste. I love cartoons, which there are some incredible cartoons out there,
There
but like
are.
I am a fan of like notoriously movies with clunkier starts, middles, and ends, and I'll give them like a high rating on Letterboxd. Like Lyle Lyle Crocodile, objectively not a good movie. I had a great time, so it's one of my favorite movies. But this movie, I feel like, is objectively and subjectively 10 out of 10, no notes, 11 out of 10 even.
I really did feel you when you said it was the most bisexual movie, because when I first started watching, I was like, when you go to a like Disneyland or something, and it's like must be at least this tall to get onto this ride. I
Yeah.
felt like you must be at least this bisexual to get a ticket to this movie.
Yes. Yeah. No, originally like I was trying to like I went to an early screening with my friend who is also she identifies as pan, but like we went and we were like, oh my god, this is a movie for us. And I feel like everyone left the theater just a little bit more queer.
Yes.
Yes.
And thank you again, Luca, for
Luca,
you do it every time, you know?
I I am so excited to like rewatch this movie. And yeah, of course my view is going to be from the bi lens for sure, but spoiler free, you hear it. LaTonya and I both think everyone should watch this movie. And if you don't, you're biphobic. Not I think you should all check this movie out because it is a good time. It made me want to watch more tennis. It made me want to play tennis. It made me want to play pickleball. And it hopefully like leads everyone out to get a little bit more tennis playing in their life, whether it
Yeah.
is also, one of my favorite memes that I saw was like, "We Sports taught me for the prepared me for this movie." Um, I only knew what the phrases like love and set and match were because of Wii Tennis, I think was the tweet.
Oh wow, that's really funny.
Yeah.
Tennis is so like a lot of sports that are mainly white. Tennis is just so wrapped up in tradition
Hmm.
that it has this arcane scoring system that doesn't make sense to anyone. And so I one of the things that's really interesting about this movie is because it is like a tale of three sets. But that final set is a tiebreaker, which is a relatively new rule in tennis. And then tiebreakers are sometimes played differently depending on what tournaments you're at as well. But there's basically just like it comes down to we've gotten to 6-all. We're gonna play a final tiebreaker for your heart, essentially, for this movie, and it becomes really interesting how well you follow along with tennis to have an idea of by the end who you think may have quote unquote won this match. Also,
Hmm. Yeah, and I felt that coming in, I did have enough of a foundation with tennis that I was like, okay, I can follow along. I don't know if everyone who saw this movie could follow along if you're not super ingrained in tennis. And I felt like I could definitely. It added to the stakes because felt like I knew what was happening in terms of the sport itself. Because I don't know, I'm curious to ask any like non-tennis fans if that was at all detracting like the or the film did a good enough job like expressing what was happening in terms of like the setting with the tennis court, but I do feel like I appreciated like the stakes of it because I understood the sport.
mm-hmm.
Who are some of your favorite tennis players out of curiosity?
Oh my gosh, Pete Sampras
Okay.
was like I'm a lot older than you are, so I'm gonna be like aging myself with some of these. Um, Pete Sampras was a huge one. Andre Agassi, um, Venus and Serena,
Of
obviously.
course.
Like I grew up in the like days of them coming out onto the court with their beaded braided hair. Um, and having that be the first time I'd ever seen that represented in tennis and on television. Um, just like seeing people who looked like me, and the ways that they were treated differently, be it like albeit sometimes subtly and a lot of times not so subtly. Um, Seeing the face of tennis change over the years, from being all about those like who's got the fastest serve, like is it like Pistol Pete or is it Andre Agassi, to seeing like people like Rafael Nadal and like Tim Henman come up. But then ultimately just like, still following tennis now and like Coco Gauff and like, there are just so many different people that I care about that are just like, seminal crushes as well that I
Yeah.
had.
Tennis players are hot.
oh my gosh, tennis players are so attractive. And they're just like uninhibited in the way that they move their bodies. Like everybody has a signature way that they move. They have signature shots, signature forehand, backhand, serves, and serve returns as well. So seeing everyone express themselves athletically in such different ways is really cool to watch. Seeing the intensity of like some of those classic Wimbledon like 5-set no tiebreak matches go down to the point where people are just so dehydrated they can no longer stand. It's yeah, it was, I would say that it shaped me quite a bit growing up and like my love of sports. And so I am prone to a tennis movie. I am prone to enjoy a tennis movie.
Is this your favorite tennis movie, or is that still held by a different title?
Oh, that's a good best new tennis movie. Um I need to see it again
Okay.
to know whether or not that is going to be the case for me, because I mean I really do like the movie Wimbledon. I love the 7 Days in Hell, like completely made up um Andy Samberg, like Lonely Island cast of ridiculous people doing tennis as well. Um so it's definitely, it's up there
Cool.
for sure.
Yeah. And I love how you referenced earlier that Kirsten Dunst, Emma Stone, and Zendaya all played Spider-Man's love interest and then went on to play a tennis star.
Mm-hmm.
That was a fun little Easter egg that like super fans of pop culture picked up on.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So yeah, should we get into the plot description or recap or
I
whatever?
think we should.
Awesome. So we're just gonna go in like story order, but like this is a non-linear narrative. So in the structure of the um, plot synopsis, we'll go in like timeline order, but we'll like jump around. Of course, like this is a spoiler review, by the way. So if you haven't seen the movie, hop out now. Come back when you watch the movie because it definitely deserves your support. But basically the whole movie setup is that they're at this challengers open and they started on opposite seeds of the bracket and worked their way up to the finals, and these two former friends, past lovers as well, like there's layers to the dynamic. It's
Yeah,
Art Donaldson, played by Mike Faist, and we got Pat Zweig. I don't know if I said that right.
Zweig.
Zweig. Pat Zweig. They are former best friends, and Pat Zweig is a tennis player down on his luck these days. He previously tried to go pro, and now he's just doing challengers event and living out of his car. Meanwhile, Art Donaldson is one of the number one tennis players in the world. He is a U.S. Open win away from getting a career Grand Slam, and he is married to Tashi Duncan, Zendaya, and she is his coach, and she is living vicariously through Art's career. But my friend Sam put out a great Twitter thread, not that Sam Davis, that Art is good when he has the Uniqlo sponsorship, because only two players have had the Uniqlo sponsorship. And one of them is Roger Federer, and let me look up the name of the other one. But so far, what was like anything to take away from so far, LT?
Just important to note that Art and Pat went to boarding school for tennis.
Yes.
So they grew up in like probably pretty well-to-do like white families, where like tennis boarding school is basically like your next steps after Mommy and Me. If you're really interested in tennis, and there's like certain places you go to do them, like Florida was a big place where a lot of people were going to tennis camps and tennis boarding school. Tashi, though, is submitted to us as the person having the most natural talent of any of these tennis players, but does not come from the same type of privileged background that they come from.
Yeah, so they grew up in the boarding school system. They like I think met when they were like 11 or 10. Like they definitely grew up together, have become best friends. And like you said, Tashi did not come from the same background. And she's going to Stanford as well. We'll get into that later, but versus the two boys, they like grew up in the boarding school system, which already boarding school is something that comes from like the affluent background. Tennis already does as well, though. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so we kind of like are introduced to the setup of that, and Art and Tashi are married, and they have a daughter as well, which is she's so adorable. What a little nugget.
She is so cute. She has like a scene.
Yeah,
And I think this was really interesting that this was apparently Zendaya's first time playing a mother.
yeah,
Which I have like other things to say about at some point later, but this is obviously one of those um like like tennis is the only thing that matters to Tashi.
yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of tragic reasons why that is the case later on in the movie. It's not that she doesn't love this child, it's just very much that this child is not like the center of her life. Not that any child needs to be the center of their parents' life.
Yeah, I did turn to my friend in the theater. I was like, I don't like that she's playing a mother. I feel like she's my age, and I feel like, but it's also nice to see her get to do something other than like high school student for the
I
most part.
guess, but it's also like it's this weird thing that happens in Hollywood where you start playing a high school student, and sometimes you play a high school student until you're in your 40s.
Yeah,
Um, like Bianca Lawson is like almost 50, if not 50, and still like was just on Pretty Little Liars. And still looks exactly the same as she did when she was Kendra, the Vampire Slayer. So like if you can do it, if you can get away with it, yeah, but like you play a teenager and then all of a sudden you're a mom, right?
yeah,
And like those are the roles that you get now. You get to like have a kid and like go to the struggles of having a child before they make you a grandmother, like at a very premature age for an actress or a human being, really. And it's just kind of the way that Hollywood cycles through women that's very interesting. We just haven't seen it with a leading woman like Zendaya because we've never had a leading woman like Zendaya before, I don't think.
she literally is mother though. That's the issue because she's like already playing mother, but she is my mother yet also my age.
She is mother and she is far younger than I am. So
Yeah, so she's not even a year older than me, and she's already playing a mother, and that made me like, not that there aren't mothers my age, but I just felt like I feel so behind. um,
don't.
uh, but yeah, so we get. Let me go to a little plot synopsis. So like the story of Tashi, Pat, and Art begins in 2006. They are high school seniors, like just right before summer vacation. They meet. They are attending. Pat and Art win the junior doubles at the U.S. Open. So they win together, and then the next day they're supposed to have their singles matchup against each other. And Tashi, they watched Tashi play. I forget the name of the girl she was playing against, but it didn't
No
matter
one
because she was not
cares.
Zendaya. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she
LaTonya,
was
no.
supposed to be racist, so
Yeah. So then they go to this party. Was this at like Zendaya's or Tashi's house, or was this like?
no. So this is what I imagine to be one of those parties that's put on by a combination of like the US Open event and also Adidas itself,
Mhm.
because like it's celebrating her new brand ambassadorship with them, and she's holding the trophy that she like won earlier in the day when she's
Yeah.
taking pictures.
And she's in this gorgeous blue dress, and she's
Yes.
just like eating it up as she does. And we at this point, both boys are really into her. They weren't even planning to go to this party, but they go, and they just kind of like buffoon off to the side, just like horny for her, and like,
Well, okay. We do have to discuss like the scene which may be an awakening of a scene. It was for Art and I want to call him Kraft, but I know that's not his name.
a Pat.
Art and Patrick. Um So they like, are very much like boys palling around, having fun out there, just like happen to be more talented and in sync than like everyone else around them. They clearly have a very close relationship. You wonder how close their relationship is because they're like brothers, but also not. Then they go and they watch Tashi Duncan play. And I think it's Patrick who's like, no, this is about to be the most attractive woman that you've ever seen in your entire life. And he's completely approaching it from the like, I've never seen anyone hotter than her ever. And then Art is like, oh my God, her backhand. Like they're thirsting in ways that I don't know if you should be allowed to do in public. Like to the point where Art grabs Patrick grabs Art's thigh, like upper inner thigh, when Tashi scores a point. And when she lets out this like guttural come on, like, which is one of my favorite things that happens in tennis is when they hit a winner and then they just like say some whatever. They're both just like, well, all of our orgasms have come at once, so how can we immediately be around this woman all the time? That's what I got from this. They had no choice but to be in her orbit at this point.
I get it. It's Zendaya. Like, but yeah, they definitely have like undertones of like very close friendship. Like they definitely love each other, and they're like brothers. But there's like also like a lot of physicality and like emotion. Like I don't know how you feel, but I feel like people can have more than one soulmate, and I feel like at this point in time they are soulmates for each other.
I agree.
Yeah,
I actually agree. Like, I think that one of the sad things is the fact that they were too just like probably just too wrapped up in what it meant to be like a male at that age at that time to even realize that they might have feelings for one another, or admit fully to each other or themselves that they had feelings for one another. And so you get that kind of like heady mix of it's almost like young love and infatuation.
yeah. And I feel like if so, this scene takes place in 2006. If this took place 15 years later in 2021, I feel like it would be like, yeah, I'm open to like being with a guy. Like I feel like that's like where people are in 2021. But like the time and place is so important in this film because it's also like fosters the relationship that they have with each other, to society, to what it means to be like a male tennis player in this environment. It's definitely like I like the fact that it's a period piece and like we're seeing the evolution of this relationship across all of them. And it ends up with them at the beach. Like they are the last ones at the party waiting for an opportunity to talk to her again because they like flubbed their first introduction. And they go down to the beach and I was like, this is so like everyone here is beautiful. The beach is beautiful. This is like you could feel like the crystal blue water of the little lagoon thing.
I know, she looked like a little mermaid on that rock.
I was just like, put me there. Like I want to be with all of them. But then I remember that they are technically high school seniors at this point in time.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, future version. I hit my microphone. That's
how much you care about this movie.
I love this movie so much. I am attacking my equipment. Here, you talk for a moment while I try to fix this microphone.
Okay.
Live podcasting.
Yeah. So basically Tashi's like, okay, I'm done with the both of you, which is one of my favorite things. That she just has this character where she's just kind of like, oh, okay, I kind of like instantly have already made up my mind, snap decision wise, as to what I think about these boys. But I enjoy being entertained. I guess I'll allow them to continue to like be in my general presence. So they basically are just trying to get Tashi's number, trying to get her number. And eventually they manage to ask her back to their hotel room. And it's just so funny for so many different reasons because she's like, oh, yeah, maybe. And it's kind of like Zendaya's away.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, chain smoking, hanging out. talking about like what would happen if she did actually come and
Well,
come over. And Art the whole time is like, there's no way she's gonna come, there's no way she's gonna come. And then all of a sudden there's a knock on the door, and guess who it is? It's Zendaya. She is there.
and
And she gets to hear all of the BS happening back in the background of them trying to make this room look presentable and not like they're just like two little teenage boys fapping off in it the whole time.
yeah, Zendaya was gonna come, but little did she know the whole theater was about to come too.
Yeah, seriously.
Not to go full Michael Bloom on this podcast, 30 minutes in, but
It just, like, everyone wanted to know what was going to happen in that hotel room. The lead up to this scene could not be more brilliant. Just the way that they are relating to each other in terms of body language. They're in this like triangle.
yeah,
The way that they're seated, and they're all drinking the same beer, because I guess there's only one beer, because
yeah.
you're at that weird age where like you're not supposed to have alcohol to begin with, and you got some by the skin of your teeth, and then all of a sudden you didn't realize that you'd be entertaining royalty and Tashi is back in your room. And they get to telling the story about
Well, Zendaya, Tashi is like, have you ever like done anything together, like with each
yeah.
other? And they're like, no, no. And then they look at each other, and then Zendaya's like, huh. And then Patrick is like, well, I did teach him how to masturbate, and then goes into this whole story about how like he was making a lot of noise during a sleepover in their boarding school, and then Art's like, what you doing? And like it's like very like flirty banter, and there's like definitely like a shared history that they have, this like unspoken language that sometimes when you get really close to people you can like develop, and like that's why I feel like there's definitely like bisexual tension,
Yes.
and I loved it.
Yeah. It's so good. And it's just like Zendaya being several steps ahead at all times. And just kind of like wondering what's going to happen, but at the same time knowing that she can dictate what happens.
it's
It's great.
like it's great, and like I can like the hierarchy of power throughout this whole movie feels like Tashi number one, then Patrick has more power over Art, and Art is like the bottom, like he's like the emotional one who like I feel like that's kind of like the structure that I've noticed throughout, because like it's Pat who like I don't know if Art is willing to share that immediately. He seems like more of like the quieter, less confident version of Patrick, who's like, yeah, so when we were 12 this one thing happened, and like throughout the movie it feels like there's, and I have this later in my notes, but basically like a toxic passion that like Patrick is very like bombastic and loud and abrasive, and Art is like more of like the like emotional one. Like he's the one who is still playing this sport in the future vicariously through Tashi, through injury, physical and emotional. He's clearly not into it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we get all of this established in this one steamy, amazing scene that blew up Twitter and blew up the theater, and like everyone was so happy watching it. And it's just like made all of the United States horny in that moment.
It did. I mean, like, I'm not normally a big proponent for coming up with panaceas for the world's problems. But I do think that if you were to get everybody just in a room and throw on challengers and just be like, no, you don't get to have your phones. You don't get to like have whatever echo chamber it is that you typically live in. Like, you're just going to be hanging out in the theater watching challengers. And I do believe that some form of world peace could be reached.
I agree.
At least for like 15 to 20 minutes.
Until everyone gets the post-nut clarity, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But I agree. Like, I feel like there's so much sexual tension in this movie that if they just like went for it, like we'll talk about the sauna scene later, like if they just made out, I feel like their problems would be solved like 24 hours earlier in the movie.
It would be solved so soon.
Yeah.
The funniest part of this whole like threesome scene is the way that it's shot, because you know, the audience goes in expecting one thing. But you know that you can't expect too much, because Zendaya has like contract writers where she doesn't do nudity or anything like that. So you're kind of wondering what's going to happen, and then you see that it's just kind of like a slow progression. First of all, I think it's important to note that she kisses Art first. Like she initially goes in to kiss Patrick, and it's just like, things have been given to you way too easily in life. I'm going in a different direction. The other thing is, she does all of this maneuvering to get them so that they are fully making out with each other, and she's just like sitting back with a grin on her face, enjoying it.
And I love the blocking because we go first to like her like reaction. So they kind of like leave it ambiguous, like what's happening. Are they going further or are they just like making out? And then we see the pan. It's like, oh, they're just making out with each other. And I feel like I want to read it as they like knew more than they wanted to pretend that they didn't, but or at least I don't know. I like if there's like stubble on it's, you can tell, you can notice the difference between that, but I don't know. I love the scene. I love like the shit-eating grin that Zendaya has on her face, where she knows she has the power, and she's like that. She, I haven't seen a smile that like mischievous since like the poster for like Smile, like
I
the
mean,
trailer for the horror movie.
honestly, if I'm gonna be honest, the most mischievous smile award goes to Josh O'Connor as Patrick. Like,
Yeah,
there are some scenes throughout. Like, okay, first of all, I think it's important to put um out there that I am not that well acquainted with Mike Feist yet. Like, this is the first thing that I've seen him in. I didn't realize he was in West Side Story until today.
I need to watch that. Every time I really want to watch it, but there's a big barrier to entry. It's how
Yes,
much can you stomach Ansel Elgort right now?
exactly.
But because
Asshole
I love
Elgort
Rachel
is
Zegler, like
everywhere in that movie.
she is another one of like she is so fun on Twitter. Like this is a Rachel
Yeah,
Zegler stan account. I loved her in everything I've seen her, but like the West Side Story is like I want to watch it because I
I
love
know.
Spielberg, but I don't like Ansel Elgort. But
I
Mike
know.
Feist, another reason to watch it because that man can get it.
He can dance. But I have been team Josh O'Connor for a really long time because of my allegiance to the crown.
Yeah.
Um, and he frankly plays one of my least favorite characters in all of the crown, because he plays Prince Charles. Um, exactly. Um, and they do a lot of work on the show of just trying to like make Charles just not the worst person that you've ever met in your life. I don't know if they succeed there, but there's definitely something that Josh O'Connor does, where he has this kind of like sly look in his eye. Like, he has an idea of how it's all going to happen, and he's just there to cause a little trouble. And it's that
Every time
sly
he shows up.
smile from him. Every time he shows up, it's just like, he looks at you. He looks at Tachi like he's seen her naked before, and that is disarming to
Mhm.
anyone.
It's he has the confidence, he has the swagger, and whereas that's why I'm like Art is the soft boy in the dynamic. Like there's a part of me that like wants to like read it as like Patrick knows that Art is into him and like likes him, but like he has this power and he kind of like puts his foot on the gas and lifts it up as he chooses. Like that's why I feel like he's squarely in the middle, because Tashi Duncan has the most power in this movie. And like I
Yeah.
love the like cinematography is something that I wanted to bring up later, but like throughout the movie we see all these like dynamics with power throughout the film. And the blocking, like you said, of how they're in the triangle, like this is such like a beautifully like it's like a dance. Some of the way this film is like executed, like creatively, because
Yeah.
it is kind of like a dance. It's like this emotional dance of love between the three of them, and the tennis is like the physicality of it. Of course, is like very elegant and like, but also
Mhm.
like aggressive. Like the parallels. Like my brain is broken. This is
Yeah.
cinematic masterpiece.
I mean, even the way that Zendaya learned her moves was through just mimicking her stunt double,
Mm.
in like a dancerly way, and just getting the steps down and the rhythm down. A lot of this is very much like a dance, and it's very telling that the first thing that we learned about Tashi when she initially assesses these two guys is, well, uh, first of all, Patrick, you shouldn't be doing nearly as well in tennis as you are doing. You don't actually care about the game. Art, you should be beating him all the time, and yet you lose to him constantly. I don't know what your deal is. You need to get it together. Tennis is a relationship. And relationships, all the best relationships last because of the amount of work that you put into them. And so we get to see the amount of work that Tashi puts into her life as wanting to be a tennis professional. We'll get to this, but like what ultimately leads her to not becoming that professional and becoming a really tragic character in this story, and what kind of drives her. And the whole time she's just really open and honest about it. She loves tennis. She just wants to see some really good tennis. And if a way that she can do that now that she can no longer get out there on the court and do it herself is to mastermind the greatest tennis match ever between these two men who are in love with her, then there you go.
Tashi Duncan for Survivor, please. I need it.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine if Tashi and Venus teamed up?
It would be, I want to see, I mean, Tashi would have so many people like, and like maybe she could get Venus to like run that game the way she deserves to.
Just so many good things about this movie. My gosh.
And as we talk, like more and more things come to mind. I'm sure we'll talk about it. But like in this, we also established that, like I mentioned earlier, Tashi and Art are both going to Stanford. And so Tashi just plays around with the boys, lets them make out for like a good like 20 to 30 seconds before like they open their eyes and realize that they've done. And again, like I think they knew what they were doing the whole time and like we're enjoying it.
Also, she was like, well, I'm tired.
Yeah, she's just like I love that you use Zendaya as a verb because she's like just Zendaya's out of there again.
She does.
Also, we do not give Zendaya enough credit. She went on Dancing with the Stars, and then like when she was big, she won it. Did she?
She came in second.
Robbery, criminal.
I agree. She was amazing.
And then she did that, and she's like only gone up from there. Usually, people go to Dancing with the Stars on the downturn.
Yes. Yeah, that or like we'll see each other on our long journey to the middle. But like, no, she was like, no, this is yet another cool and fun thing that I'm gonna get to do in my life and career, and I'm gonna make it.
Yeah, awesome. I love her. I just want to be friends with her and Tom Holland. They seem so like fun and home. Like
I know. It seems like they would be the people who would be like, let's get some really good like vegetarian food. And
have a game night.
And have a game night together and like have a little dancing when everybody like, at some point Beyonce comes on, of course.
Zendaya was notably at the concert.
Yeah, so was Tom Holland.
Yeah, he was her plus one because
very much
like he loves Beyonce, but Zendaya's like we're going to Beyonce. Tom Holland's like okay, whatever you say. That Tom Holland, like maybe this is like the soft boy beta in me that like I relate to like I am the squishy emotional like boyfriend, like future like take home to your parents, not like the bad boy that you date in your 20s. And that's why I think I related to Art and why I relate to Tom Holland. It's like, oh, because Zendaya could have anyone she wants. Tashi Duncan can have anyone she wants, but she picks you because you like are the one who like makes her feel like happy, but like you're like a fun, easy, soft hang. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. And we definitely should talk about like the pros and cons of each of these boys, because I'm sure that there are teams, like people who chose teams.
I'm on team Art, even because like, okay, so what I had in my notes is like Art is like the friend that you fall in love with over time. Like he's like, oh, the best friend turned like, oh, what if we dated? And then Pat was like, lust and desire and toxic passion, like they like are hot and heavy and then like volatile. Like this is a combustible situation because Pat is very stubborn, Tashi's very stubborn, and like when Tashi starts to coach him in the college years, this is like Degrassi, challenges Degrassi. But then that's when like things fall apart for them because they date long distance while Pat tries to go pro and Tashi and Art. That's basically the next thing between. We'll talk about, I'm sure, the tennis ball in the next scene in a moment. But
you don't think that Art is incredibly manipulative?
At times, but he's like also like I feel like I can see what he's doing. Whereas like with Patrick, he has so much charm versus like Art is kind of like, I don't know. They're both manipulative. They're all manipulative.
They
Like
are. Yeah.
toxic and sexy.
Yeah. The world definitely needs more of that. I just feel like part of me is team Zendaya, you know? Just like I will support any and all things that Tashi does. Uh
Agreed. See,
because
I'm team myself because I was just having a good time.
I was having a great time. But there are some things that Tashi says in this movie that just make me want, like, I just want to play this character in my real life. Like when Art is like, I just want you to like tell me that you'll love me for always and ever, and she was like Jesus. You want me to love you unconditionally?
Yeah.
Okay.
There were some great lines of this movie. Decimate that bitch is one that's lived rent free in my mind. No, I think it's decimate that little bitch.
Decimate that little bitch. Yeah, just with Patrick being like, your mom looks great, by the way. Yeah, Patrick, I know my mom looks great. She's like, I don't have any time for you. The fact that he's going on Tinder dates because he needs a place to sleep. Like,
I love the line. Yeah, I know my mom looks great. Like the delivery of that line was also just incredible. Not only is the line like fantastic, but like Zendaya, give this woman an Oscar, please,
please.
please. She is gonna EGOT. I know this, but give it
She
for
has
this.
to, but like for this would be so great because like people are always talking about how they want complex women on the screen, right? They're always talking about how they want complex women of color on the
A
screen,
complex black woman.
black women. And then when you put a complex black character on the screen who is just like, what am I gonna not sleep with Josh O'Connor? I don't care that I'm married to Mike Feist. He's lucky to be married to me, and everyone knows it.
Even he does that. That's why I think I related to him because like I feel like that's gonna be future me. I'm lucky to be with whoever.
He's just like by the end of the movie, not the very end, but like one of the scenes that I know we'll talk about where they're on the bed and he's just like, please just hold me. And she's
Again, the
like,
power, the way they filmed that, the way he was like upside down on the bed and he's like begging for her, and she like could break him apart in that moment, emotionally or physically. Like,
it's just, yeah. But part of me is also team thruple.
agree.
Because like how many of your problems could have just been solved if you had just as adults had sex?
Like, it's so many of them. Like, honestly, like it does make sense. Like, have Tashi and Art be the main couple, and then invite Josh to the bedroom whenever you're feeling spicy.
No one needs to know NDAs can be signed.
Yes. I watched You season 3.
Oh Lord, that show.
That show.
Can't wait to cover that.
Yeah,
It's
I
gonna be
mean,
fun.
you got me into that show. Like, I fell deep, and then season 4 was rough, and I even say that. I'm like, season 4 it could have been a 2-episode miniseries.
If they hadn't split up, I know we're getting off of point, but if they
Where
had
was the
split up the
point?
season, well, we were just like thirsting after the people in this movie.
And that's what You was about too.
Yeah, and that's what You is about as well. I just don't. I don't know. Um, and also, okay, so part Team Zendaya, part Team Thruple, and also just part like let Zendaya go and be Tashi. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure Zendaya learned so much at Stanford and is doing such great stuff that she could run any company that she
Well,
wanted to run.
it seems like she's running Art. Like she
She
is
is.
running him as a company, as an athlete, and as a business. Like,
Yeah, she's doing the changes to the design mock-ups of the two of them, like endorsing a car. Like a high, like very like these people are not poor. But like one
oh,
of the things that Tashi says early in the movie is, yeah, we can stay here, we can do that. You'd want to just be rich people and not a tennis player like you are. Like, yes, we could have a very easy life. You're right. We could. Or you could stop being a little bitch and you could show me the player that you have been trying to prove to me that you are since we met.
That's the thing. He's like, he clearly loves her, and like he has feelings for her. And so, just to wrap up the sexy hotel scene, she says she will give her number
Yes.
to the person who wins the singles U.S. Open Juniors tournament. And the
Never
next,
has there been a bigger cost to winning the singles US Open Juniors
then
tournament.
Zendaya's number.
Yes.
And then we find out that Patrick won, and Art wants to know if they had sex. And so Art you mentioned serves earlier, like how people are known for like their moves in the tennis
Mhm.
world. And like his thing, he always holds the ball right in the triangular neck of the racket before serving. And so Patrick is like, I'll do this if like that becomes a sign of like, did they have sex? Which is such like a genius little like way of like doing a symbol, is like, because that the audience can, that's a visible sign that the audience can also see.
Yes. That's such great storytelling right there because it is showing us, it's not telling us, but then it's also having to like go from these two like best guy friends joking around about whether or not one of them slept with a woman they both want to sleep with to no, this is going to have stakes at some point. And this is going to come back around and it's going to be a huge shock moment to everybody who sees it
Yeah,
in the audience. Like as a moment and later in the film that played so well, and I know that we'll talk about it, but it's set up so well earlier.
it's set up so well, and I know people are critical about the length of the movie. That's like one of the criticisms I saw. But I feel like every scene matters, and even like it's like because that build up, because it gives the audience a chance to catch up. And I feel like this movie is
They
like
think
so
it's too
smart.
long or something.
That was like a couple of the feedback that people at work have been talking about it. I was like, no,
I
this movie
think
could have
it
been
needed to be
longer.
longer.
Agreed. But you know, the streets.
Streets do be saying things.
Yeah. So I love that it let the audience like understand what was happening, come to the conclusion of like, oh, what the intentionality behind this movie. And I feel like this is both a Luca thing and a Zendaya thing as producers. Like they have such intentionality in creating the story with every scene that matters and everything that goes on, and like the layers upon layers. It's like an onion, because there's like
Yeah.
the tennis match is an allegory for sex, for romance, for gender, for like power, like so much about it. And like it's just such an elevated sport with so much back and forth. And that's kind of like one of my friends has this thing where, is it flirting or is it banter? um
Mm.
so uh th- yeah, so one of my friends has this whole concept of like, is it flirt, like it's flirting is just banter being played like ping pong back and forth. Like if it's going back and forth, if you're just doing one-sided banter, then that's not flirting.
No.
So that was like also like something that I thought of with this film. But um I just have such positive things. I do have a couple criticisms which we'll get to, but this movie overall is so good and so genius, and I can't stop praising it enough.
Yeah. I think that there's something about Luca Guadagnino's movies where he will just like pluck you out of your life and like plop you down into the most random series of events with some of the most beautiful and interesting people that you'll never get to see or meet. um, and then just tell you the really weird shit they get up to. And then just peace. That's it. Like, oh, you wanted this movie to have a resolution? See someone else's film, I guess. Like, you wanted to not have to think at the end of a movie about like cannibal lovers. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
You like you're at my bisexual tennis movie now, and I'm going to make it feel like these characters are sweating on you for like half of the film, and you're gonna love it.
Yeah, everything's gonna have like he's literally he's giving the audiences blue balls.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna get this, and no conclusion for you. This is open to interpretation. That is what the film is about.
No, and it's so good, especially given all the rise of the discourse about how like this generation doesn't like sex scenes. Like sex scenes have died in cinema because like certain generations just aren't into it. I feel like my TikTok and Twitter are telling me different.
Listen, as someone who lives out here, I feel like this was a very horny crowd, and people want more, especially if it's like representing people.
Yeah.
Like that's I think also like we don't want just like the boring stuff. Give us like the like more unique stuff, and that's I think part of it. But also, yeah, no, I think people, Twitter, TikTok, they be that's what the people really be feeling. But yeah,
Yeah.
so we get into like the long distance era at Stanford, and Pat reassures Art that he loves Tashi, and we get to this like the one of the more manipulative art scenes, which might have been filmed at one of the dining halls at my college. I'm not confident. It looks a little like the Wheelock dining hall
Oh,
because they filmed at Boston. This was like a Boston movie. Also, it takes place in New York, but
it's a beautiful dining hall, wherever that was. Like I
I
was just
think that was like
admiring
I'm
I was
pretty
just
sure I had been
admiring
there.
the place where you have where? What campus is it?
This was a BU. It would have been the Wheelock College dining hall.
Okay.
Let me Google it, see if I can come
Like
up with it.
the glass everywhere is
Yeah,
so filmic, and there's just like um it looks like it came out of a John Hughes movie is kind of the best way that I can put it to you. Like it's your ideal of what a campus dining hall would look like.
yeah. So let me see if I can show you. Does this look like it?
It
Maybe
does
no.
with the it kind of does with like the background of the windows, yeah.
Yeah,
And there
this is
aren't
what I
any
thought it was.
kiosks, and those are removable.
Yeah, that's what I'm not again. I'm not confident, but anyways, I know the movie was in Boston because I could point out different Boston locations. I got so excited, and I did know
I knew
from
it
my
was
Boston
in
friends.
I knew it was in Boston because there was a Dunkin' Donuts ad in the movie.
Yep. That's Boston. Ben Affleck and J Lo is another version of representation for me because it's the Latino Boston combo.
Oh my god. Ham on cheese, ham with cheese on a roll with an orange drink, if you know, you know, and a small bag of chips is
Speaking of references, though, when you said I it took a lot of resistance to not say, "Can I have your number? Can I have it?" If you ever watched that old sketch way back when, Yvonne, that's a French ass name.
wow.
What a
Um,
throwback.
so many throwbacks. I just can we just talk for a second about how differently Tashi has to move through this movie than these two men do.
Yes, please
Um,
pop off.
so like
Speak on it.
she has to be the best in order to just like be accepted into the room for one thing. And then she just it really does feel like she spends a lot of her time watching other people waste their gifts when
Mhm.
she has so many gifts that she just can't give anymore because of her injury, which I know we'll talk about in depth. And like I'd also like to talk about the why you think that happened, like what the circumstances that led up to the injury. But I really feel like early in the movie, right when they're meeting Tashi, we get Patrick talking about everybody in her family is going to be a millionaire. They're going to have a Tashi Duncan Center for at-risk youth to play tennis. And Art was just kind of like, "Can you stop talking about her? Like she's not like an inspirational person for lots of people who actually could do some good." Like it's just it's kind of like the little quiet moments we get with these characters that show you that, and the fact that Zendaya, like Tashi, decides not to go pro right away, which Patrick just thinks is the wildest idea in the world. But going to Stanford, playing tennis there, so going for free, is probably, before you go pro, is probably a pretty good idea for most people who didn't even think that college was a consideration for what their family had to offer.
Mhm. And she even emphasizes at one point in the movie during the high school scenes that, like, well, I might not be a tennis player forever. I want to get something out of it. But
Mhm.
like, she's very responsible, which I appreciated because we saw how gambling on yourself doesn't always work out, Mr. Patrick.
Yeah.
So I love that, and I love the fact that she knows how much weight is on her shoulders, not just in terms of like her familial stuff, but like there's probably a whole lot of weight that she has to carry being like one of the faces of tennis at her age for Black
Yeah.
women.
Mhm.
And she definitely recognizes that. She calls the boys out on their privilege throughout the film. You little white
Mhm.
boys need to get your shit together is like something basically that she says. Um,
Yeah, another great line delivery in this movie. I'm doing such a great job of taking care of my little white
that's
boys.
Yes.
Woo!
And so
Like,
she like the intersectionality of like being a woman in the sport, being a Black woman in the sport, that is very white male dominated, like has a history in the country club scenes and like boarding
mhm,
schools and like
right.
Florida, which all give white people energy. Like, oh
Yeah, definitely. And they get to choose, like, they get the honor of being like, "Oh, I can go pro or I could go to college. I could do
yeah,
whatever I want." Where for Tashi, it's like not even a second thought. Like, what if something goes horribly wrong? It does. I need something to like that I can rest my mind on. And knowing how good she was to tennis, um, is I do have to say, like, one of the things that I give these guys credit for is just realizing what a big like deal and talent Tashi was before she got
yeah.
hurt.
And yeah, so we're leading up to the scene where she gets hurt, but basically like Art tries to like say he doesn't love you, which again is like the friendship energy that like, oh, I'm like on the sidelines
You
and
mean the
I love you.
manipulation?
Yeah, emotional manipulation. And he's like, I'm on the sidelines, but I actually care about you. Versus like Patrick, he's going being a tennis player. He's not here with you daily. He doesn't know you, and like he definitely has the feels for her. And then there's like the Patrick who comes into town. It's like this hot shot pro tennis player. They have like steamy, passionate like hookups, but then they also like she like starts giving him feedback about his tennis playing in the middle of a hookup, and he like gets mad. And this was one of my first criticisms of the film is like the sound mixing was a little too intense with the music at points, which we haven't talked much about the score besides at the start, but incredible score.
So
Uh,
good.
but it did like distract me. It was a little too loud that it distracted me because I did kind of want to hear what they were yelling about. And I understand that was like Luca's intent. That's like
Mhm.
every director has like such critical thinking about how each thing is going to play out. But as a consumer, I did get distracted by how loud the volume was that it distracted me and took me out of the moment, which otherwise was like a high point of tension so far in the film.
Yeah, I want to point to what Art does in kind of inserting himself into this relationship that's going on. Um, and is that he's being a little bit of a stinker here. He's like pointing out like this guy doesn't love you. And Tashi very rightfully so says, whoever said that that was what I wanted from him, for him to love me, but in a way inciting this really terrible fight that happens between the two of them, which, like, if you're making out, just keep making out. Like, they were so hot. They were just I don't know. Zendaya was wearing the cutest panties in the history of all time. Her ass looks great. She's got legs for days. I was just like, how dare you interrupt this with a fight? What are you doing?
Well, in fairness, I do think Tashi like instigated the escalation by just like giving him feedback. He was ready to make out, and he was like, she was like, okay, but your serve sucks, or whatever he said.
Yeah.
Like, and like she had no business giving tennis pointers in the bedroom. She should be focusing on another set of balls at that moment.
She only cares about one thing.
Tennis.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and then that definitely like gets him, and then he doesn't show up to the match. That
Yeah.
he's not there. She definitely notices. Art notices, and I think she has like a lot on her mind already. And then she lunges, and we get the snap sound.
Yeah.
Which one of the criticisms I had of the trailer is like, ooh, maybe that didn't need, because like everyone was just waiting for the leg to break
Yeah,
throughout the movie.
that's
That
true.
was something that I felt like everyone was like, okay, when are we gonna see this? Like, where you know it's gonna happen. But and then
Can I
she
talk?
gets,
Can we talk real quick about the appearance of the "I told ya" shirt?
yes,
Okay,
speak on it.
so this was a shirt that was apparently originally worn by John F. Kennedy Jr., obviously before his passing. And at first we see Tashi wearing it at the kind of like lunch where she has an argument with Art about why are you in my relationship, basically, why are you trying to start shit. Then we see that shirt ripped violently off and thrown across the room, and then the next time we see it, Josh O'Connor, his character, is wearing it. So I feel like it just goes on this little journey the whole time, and it's so interesting how these characters are so close they literally share each other's clothes.
I'm looking online for an I Told You shirt right now. I need swag for this movie. If everyone went for the I Am Knuff sweatshirts, I need this.
I know, seriously.
But yeah, they're so all over. Like it's the siblinghood of the traveling I Told You shirt. Um,
That's exactly that. Can we call it that? And then
Challengers colon the siblinghood of the traveling I Told You shirt.
2, cruise control.
Electric Boogaloo.
Yes.
Um,
Just a ridiculous movie. All
in
of
the
it is
best ways.
ridiculous.
Yes, ridiculous, unhinged. Just like if everyone would just like get drunk and make out with each other, honestly, I think the world would have less issues. Which I do know on good authority that Michelle Fitzgerald of Survivor fame supports, because, quick tangent since we're here, Cinco de Mayo, like many years ago, my friends were hammered in New York, and this was like
Mhm.
right after Michelle's first season,
Ooh.
and it is a bi guy or a gay guy or some sort of queer man and a lesbian woman, and they were good homies, and they were so drunk that they one of them screenshotted the other, or like filmed the other one in the back of an Uber making out with someone else, and sent it to Michelle on Snapchat. And Michelle responded, "Get drunk and make out with each other." And now that is a framed screenshot. Like someone framed that screenshot after printing it out and put it in their living room.
Yes. Yeah,
And honestly, we love bisexuality. That's the Brazilian dragon
that's
standpoint.
it. That is what
Yeah.
we're here for. Yeah, so we see the "I told you" shirt make an appearance when um we see Patrick show up, and Zendaya and Art Donaldson are just there. Like, Tashi's like gone through the most traumatic thing that
Yeah,
she
they're in like the
probably has
sports
ever,
rehab room.
yeah, experienced, and they're just both yelling,
And he's like, "Get the fuck out of
"Get
here,
out of
Patrick."
here! Patrick, go away!" It's just like part of it was like, okay, you're right. He wasn't there. That was not cool. He did not, however, tear your knee apart.
Yeah.
And like, how dare you, Art? Like, you're yelling at your best friend.
Well, I think he saw Tashi doing it, and he's like, "Well, here's my in.
Oh yeah,
Let me
for
yell at
sure.
you." There was definitely like the moment, like, "Oh, she's mad at him. Let me like support her in this moment." And
Hmm.
like maybe like I don't know. It does take a little bit longer for them to get together, but that was like Stanford was really like the beginning of the Art and Tashi era. Whereas
Right.
like I feel like leading up to it, it was like a thruple, but Art was kind of like the third wheel of the thruple for
Hmm.
most of it. And this was like the first time that Art had power in the dynamic and was like, "Oh, I can kind of push Josh O'Connor out of the way and
Right.
slide in here like a first baseman."
Ah, yes, the famous first baseman of tennis. Uh,
Mixing my metaphors.
yeah. Just the dynamics that those two men have, they're so about one-upping one another, and just like they're like kings of edgelording, basically. And they just care so much about each other that part of it is like upsetting that Tashi was a little bit of a home wrecking factor in this whole thing, though she did call it. But I do love the fact that she was able to like manipulate mastermind, her two favorite little white guys, into and a match at a challenger, which is like an all-timer match at a challenger. Like
Those
if you
people were
showed
eating good.
up
Those
right.
people, and that was the best tennis game of the year.
Exactly. If you showed up to Mike's Tires Emporium's challenger, you were getting entertained and you weren't even sure what was going on.
I was so jealous of that background actor who was next to Zendaya in every single scene at the Challengers. I was like, you get to witness like incredible cinema firsthand.
I'm jealous of Zendaya's personal assistant who played the umpire.
Oh. I did not know that was her personal assistant.
Yeah.
We love that.
So good.
Yeah.
So like this match really is one for the ages. Like there are a lot of long volleys. There are some good drop shots. There's some nice trick shots. Like people who don't like tennis are like, what are you talking about? But it's just the 3-act structure really comes to a close. With Art basically being like, I'm pathetic. Can you please just tell me that you'll love me no matter what? And Zendaya be like, I will leave you if you lose this match.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you understand.
You're like skipping ahead a little bit. We didn't even talk about Applebee's.
Oh my gosh, Applebee's.
Yes.
We always have to talk about Applebee's.
Where's Karishma with the blue shark punch bowl? I love the fact that like they go on this like friend catch up dinner sort of thing. Like, oh, one of them's in town or whatever. And then they like just like start softly flirting with each other. And then they're making out at the parking lot of an Applebee's. Like Pam might have felt God in this Chili's tonight, but I felt Lucifer in the Applebee's that night.
Can we talk about how hot Zendaya looked in this scene where they go to dinner?
Again, Zendaya can hurt me.
Yeah. I just so talented and like really good at dealing with varying degrees of anger. And Tashi was a very angry character for a lot of reasons. Like if my career ended that way and I was on the road to making millions of dollars doing what I loved, I would be an unstoppable rebel force. Like I would not be good to be around. So just seeing her kind of like fighting for her life in this tennis thing, fighting for her relationship in a weird way, but also, knowing that it's only because of this psychological drama that she is helping to create in large part that she is starting to see glimpses of the man who she married again. And I feel like that's been missing for a while. And he's just ready to be, he's almost like ready to be done, by the time we get to him in the beginning of the film even.
Yeah, no, like I said, he's like hurting physically and emotionally. He does not want to be doing this. He's depressed. He doesn't like tennis anymore. He's like tired of it. And he's like physically injured as well. Like we see like the shoulder pad thing.
The kinesthetic tape.
Yeah, and so we know that he's injured and he like has to go rest every break. Like he sits there, takes his shirt off, but
which was for us.
Yes, I mean, yeah, exactly, yeah. But we then like find out by around 2011 that they've gotten engaged and they eventually get married. But in the meantime, we have the Atlanta Open where Tashi and Pat start flirting. And we later see that Art knows about this because he's like walking in and he's like signing something for someone. And then he turns around and they're gone and like probably making out on the back of an apartment complex.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's so horny and so mischievous and so manipulative and all the emotions.
I was just gonna say that there are still so many good parts of this movie coming. I'm just like looking forward to them.
And I it's just like again, like the volleying between like the characters, and I really like the way that the script was written. I want to shout out the screenwriter as well, because we've talked a lot about Luca as the director, but Justin Kuritzkis, I believe, is the writer of it.
Who is married to Celine Song,
Who wrote Past Lives and directed, right?
Yeah.
So these people have us in a chokehold, I guess.
It's just like, first of all, who told you were allowed to have that much talent in your couple?
Right?
Past Lives was one of the best movies that I've seen in a very long time. And it also shared this, like, are we in a throuple kind of energy as well. So I think that's interesting to see how, husband and wife are like using those types of themes in different ways in their own art.
The fuck? This man already is working on another project with Luca Guadagnino. It's called Queer, and it's a Mexican like queer love story with Daniel Craig. Like, sign me up already. I am set. Yeah. I am set. The movie might still be made, and might still be being made, and I'm already set for it.
Yeah. I know what seat I want in the theater, and I'm just going to occupy it until it's time.
Yeah. Like, I don't have to go home, but I will stay here. This is my home now.
Exactly. Yeah, this is where I live now.
It's like Iowa Berry, I think, said that about what's her name? She's in Euphoria. She plays Jules.
Hunter Schafer.
Yeah, her new movie is coming out, and Iowa Berry said, like, I'm already sad. Like, they will not move me. I'm sad. Yeah.
That movie looks disturbing. It's called Cuckoo, right?
Yes. I don't know if I will be sad for that because it looks disturbing, and I have fears. But I will be sad for the queer movie with Luca behind the camera again.
Yeah, who won't be? It's gonna be great.
So we found out that they like to stay in hotels a lot as opposed to like renting out a fancy Airbnb or whatever, because their daughter Lily likes hotels. And so when we get to yes, same. So when we get to the hotel, we see Patrick is struggling with money. He smells weird, but he's on all these apps, and he's on a date because he's trying to sleep in this woman's hotel room. And this is when Zendaya, Tashi Duncan, walks by, and this might be the reference that you had earlier. My mom always looks great, like but he is like trying to serve the ball in her side of the court, and like she will later see that he asked her to coach him for his last season as opposed to coaching Art for one more season. And so like the tension is palpable between them. And this is after she has signed Art up for the Challengers Open, which like girl boss gatekeep gaslight. And then I saw the version of this meme which has then Art next to her, and it's like male wife like meditate or something. I don't know. It was like 3 others, like, and male wife is exactly what he is.
One of my favorite things about this, like this Tinder date with Patrick, is that this woman is completely that he's on the date with is like trying to check out what's going on. Like how do you know Tashi Duncan? What's happening? Yeah. And so he comes back over, clearly all like gassed up and ready to go because he was just talking to Tashi Duncan for the first time since Atlanta. But then he immediately starts making out with this woman, and she's like, okay, yep, I'm here for it.
Yeah, he's so like tense, and he's like, okay, well, I gotta get this out. And and what a scene. These people, LaTonya, these people. Why are there not more of those people in my life? But also, I feel like I would cry about it. I don't know.
There would be happy tears. I will say that. This is one of the most beautiful casts of people that I've ever seen in my entire life. Like everything about it is cinematic. Like there is no wrong angle that you could shoot these people at. Major props to Zendaya because she hates working out. Is like notoriously hates working out, and had to like get into good enough physical shape to be play a tennis player. So not for nothing, I'm sure that Zendaya, the actor, when the injury happened, was like, "Oh, thank God!" All I have to
Yeah.
do now is play with an iPad. This is so much better. But yeah,
I
that
want to
was a
know
really good scene. Sorry, I was gonna say that was a really good scene between the two of them, and a lot of sexual tension between them.
I 100% concur. And like I want to know like the filming schedule. Like what did they do all the Tashi Duncan scenes first so she could get the tennis out of the way and then focus on like producing and like make the boys go work out and play tennis more?
They apparently all learned to play together. They were in the
Yeah.
same tennis boot camp. I'm
With
trying to
like
remember the name of the man who taught them how to
well,
play.
I read an interview that like Josh O'Connor physically transformed into a different human, and you can even see like when they're younger, they're like skinnier and more slender, and then when they get older, they have a lot more of the muscle like that from of the over the years, and like I feel like they definitely like you could see that they intentionally like did a lot of like body work to create the
Yeah,
change, and even like the hair and makeup, like you can see that Art has like the shaggier haircut, and then as he gets older, he has like the like professional like short like very clean cut look.
yeah,
And meanwhile, Patrick gets like more scragglier and like scruffier over the years, and like you can tell that like he is like poised to be more of like, oh, you sleep in your car, sort of like more unkempt, but still like very attractive. Like again, what a
yeah.
hot movie.
Very hot movie. I want to just shout out Brad Gilbert, who is the tennis player and now coach. He's like an ESPN commentator as well, who actually did all of the tennis instruction, leading that for this movie. I grew up like knowing who Brad Gilbert was, and I'm pretty sure now he's coaching Coco Gauff. So keep doing great
Tie it all
things.
back. Now should we get to like the climactic scene where we get to so we get like three scenes that I feel like are the crux of like the ending. We get one between each of the duos. So we get like the Patrick and Tashi stuff where they sneak out and Patrick offers to like ask her to be think about being his coach, and then we'll go
Mhm.
back to Patrick and Tashi at the end, and then we see um the we'll also see Tashi and Art, which you described, where he's like, "Will you love me if I quit? If I lose tomorrow?" And she's like, yes, basically, like, or no, basically,
No, no,
yeah,
I
she's like,
won't.
no, and like you see the power where he has like the puppy dog eyes, and he just wants to be like a retired dad at this point. Um, and then she like goes and leaves, and then goes and hooks up with Patrick after asking him to throw the challenge, and they hook up in the car during the windy night, and then we also get the sauna scene where like Patrick literally like has the towel position where he has his crotch right in front of Art and like is trying to dominate power, and then they talk, and then they like try to Patrick's like, oh, we should reconcile all of our history, and Art is like, no thank you, bye. Like he like brutally like denies him that and says that at least he is a pro tennis player, which is like what Patrick always wanted to be. So like we get all these three scenes like setting up the climactic tie points that we keep seeing back and forth of, because this tennis game, like how many ties are there, do you think?
There are quite a few like within the games
Like match points,
themselves
right?
also, but like match points as well, I believe.
Yeah. Is there a dynamic that you want to explore first between the three dynamics of the like the three leads?
Um I think that we need to have a conversation about Tashi and Art's relationship. Um so maybe we should start with them.
Yeah, yeah. Take it where you want to go.
So one of the interesting things that I found about this couple was that neither of them ever said I love you to the other. Um like Tashi would always be like, "You love me, right?" And then Art would go, "Who wouldn't love you?" Or he would say, "You know, I love you," or something like that, and she would go,
I know.
Yeah, no."
She Han Soloed him.
Wasn't expecting that noise. Uh, but yeah, just I've not seen a more pathetic man on screen than
I told
Art
you he was a
in this
beta.
scene.
He is a beta to both of them. He is like that's why like he finally standing up for himself against Patrick. I was like, hell yeah. But again, they're all toxic.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Um,
So he's definitely like she is the dominant force in the dynamic. He's just like the dad. He gives soccer dad energy.
mhm. he can't wait to be doing those drop-offs and pickups,
Yeah,
like anything but this. And he's rich too, so he can do whatever he wants, which is
exactly.
probably nothing. Let's be honest. Like if
Yeah,
I was rich, I wouldn't do anything.
he'll probably like maybe slide into sports commentary, tennis
Yeah,
commentary.
that would be a
That's
really natural path. Yeah.
Yeah, and then be like a dad. Go to the sauna to look at Patrick Swag.
Yeah. And Tashi was like, if that's what you think that I want, sure. Like, how are you gonna look at me after tomorrow? Exactly the way I'm looking at you right now. Only I'm gonna leave you if you don't get it together.
And that is
Wonderful.
terrifying for him.
Yeah. I mean, this is like what he's built a huge amount of his identity around because he doesn't, as you said, care about the sport anymore. Like the
Yeah,
sport is Tashi and Tashi is the sport. But like also equates Tashi with being a god at one point. So it's like just like
Zendaya. I'm sure he's right.
exactly, just like worshiping at the altar of
He's
Tashi.
literally on
And
his knees with his face
yes,
looking up to her at the end, and she
yes,
literally says like Jesus. Like, yeah, it's
right. Like
so
what am I,
deified.
Jesus? Like it, and he goes, yeah, actually. Um he it's what's gonna make the part that we'll probably talk about next so heart-wrenching to see when we get the actual serve that happens again.
Yeah. Well, do you want to transition right there? Like
Yeah.
let me hear what you want to say because I am on the edge of my seat.
So we get part of the match that harkens back to if you had sex with her, show me by serving like a normal person would serve. Because I'm telling you that Patrick's serve is ridiculous. Like I don't know what he's doing, but I and who taught him that, but it's hilarious. And so Patrick goes to serve in the way that he did to prove that he had had sex with Tashi before, and he does it this time, and it's like we see Art's soul leave his body
Mhm.
completely. And Tachi, this is the one time that she can't be the master manipulator because she has no idea what this means and who it's going to pump up and who it's not going to pump up. But little does she know, she's just like made herself privy to probably some of the best tennis that she's going to see in a very long time. And she made that happen in one way or another.
Took like 11 years of work or however long.
Yeah.
But
White boys are slow.
yeah.
So takes longer with
That
them
that is
sometimes.
determination and endurance. Like but no, I completely agree. And like you can feel like this is where the score like makes the scene so much like richer and tense, and like the cinematography where they're going back and forth, and like some of the camera angles in this, and you can feel like the back and forth. I will say the ADR was a little noticeable because they had the same grunt every single time. Like every single hit, it's the same emphasis of the grunts for each actor.
Yeah,
It's like, could we get a little bit more diversity of
that's
grunts?
really funny. We need grunt diversity.
Grunt.
Like,
But like, and then it's just magnificent. It's cinematic. Like that's the best way to describe it. Like this tennis match is everything. And then when you like insert the like layer of like the sauna discussion and like the like, oh, he feels powerless, but he also wants to assert his power, but he doesn't have all this power, that he knows Patrick has some of the power, and like some of what he's saying is hollow, but he also believes it, and he's like trying to gas himself up. Like I just this movie, LaTonya, this movie.
this movie's so good. And then we get Art just being like, are you serious, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is what's going down? Like, honestly, you fuck my wife? Like, what do you
But it's
like
also like
but he needed it. He needed that to like get him back into the level of vested interest he needs to have to play well in this sport.
and he also like not only that, I feel like there's a part of him that could tell that Patrick was throwing the game. at the end, because he was like intentionally
Yeah.
trying to throw, like he said to Zendaya. It's still like discourse of how aggressively he was throwing the whole time, but near the end he definitely like gave him a point, which is like, you're
Right.
not only gonna fuck my wife, but you're gonna try to humiliate me and let
I
me win on
know.
like, and like, so like, let me show you what's happening. And then this, like, is it time to talk about the ending,
I think so.
or is there anything else you want to say before we get to like the build up and the release of the tension?
The build up and the release are pretty important. I think that we need to
Yeah.
finally let go.
Okay. Well, it's time. So we get to it's going back and forth. And I have seen criticism saying like this final sequence was way too long. And someone said like, oh, the scene was like much shorter until they taught Luca Guadagnino how to use a slow-mo effect. Um, but like, this
That
is,
is none of my business. What
yes,
is
no,
my
I
business is
like,
how
no.
good this movie is.
Build it up, let us, and like we get it, and it's like the cinematic like launching where he like slams the ball down into Patrick's side of the court, wins the game, but like instead that's not the thing that matters. He jumps into his arms,
Yeah.
and Tashi yells, yeah,
Yeah.
like
She's like,
she
come
like
on.
guttural scream, like come on,
Like
like, and
something we
they're
have not heard from her since when she was playing tennis herself.
so good. And then smash credits.
Yeah. Cause like who needs an ending, you know? Like
That's the
if,
money shot.
if you didn't leave this movie in some way changed from the person that you were when you went in, then I question who you are as a person. Like I'm not sure if we're on the same side of the struggle,
Yes.
honestly.
I could totally imagine saying, and Patrick saying to Mike, or Art, how did your life change? I want to say for the better when you joined Challengers with Zendaya and I. Because my life changed for the better consuming it. This was like enriching. This was a text that will define my life. And again, there's the representation aspect of it, but like this movie, like it just hits.
Yeah,
Pun intended.
it does. It's just so good. And the way that like this entire tennis match ends up with just that as the as I mean, like you get the idea that these three people have really made an awakening, like a breakthrough at this point, and maybe they'll get to go forward being horrible people together.
Yeah.
But they
They are
need to
definitely
clean
at
each
least all
other's
gonna end
heart.
up in the hotel room.
Oh, definitely. That child is getting kicked out. I don't care how much room service she ordered. She's got to go.
What's your favorite thing to order at a hotel while we're on this topic?
Oh my gosh. Oh god, I love hotels so much. Um I'm a fan of soup. So whenever I go someplace like Boston, for example, I always get clam chowder.
Chowder.
I am a big fan of a nice like club, like turkey club sandwich
Mhm.
moment with some French fries or some sweet potato fries. Um, Sometimes I'll get a burger because like I'll be at a place like Texas where they do beef really well.
Mhm.
Um, or if that, but if there's some type of like specialty standout pasta dish or something,
That's the spot, LaTonya. You
yeah,
know what's up. Like,
yeah, it's like oh,
whoever
like
invented noodles changed my
thank
life for the
you,
better.
yeah, thank you so much, Noodler.
Carbs and
Um,
cheese? Say less.
uh, I, I mean, I want to order room service in one of these rooms. Like these are great hotel rooms.
Yes.
And I miss being in
Between
hotel rooms a lot.
between this movie and Better Call Saul, the one of the biggest moments happening in a hotel room during room service, like hotels have had a good few years in media.
Yeah, and
The
good
Sweet
for
Life of
them.
Zach and Cody, set in a hotel.
I've never seen it, but I'll have to take your word for it.
This could be one of those like I show you something of my that defined me, and then you show me something that defined you, and we come and talk about it.
Oh my god.
But
Um, do we have to pick the Sweet Life of Zach and
no, I
Cody?
can find
Okay.
another Disney Channel show that is.
Okay.
um, so yeah, this movie just hits, and like, I have some things like that. I definitely like. We can run over my list of like topics that I need to hit on before we wrap. But like,
Sure.
how does this movie? What are the feelings this movie leaves you with? Like as you like think about like this piece of cinema, this piece of art that we engaged with, for the podcast and for like our own lives that are enriched because of it. Like, what do you want to say about this film that you haven't yet said?
I just think that we're at a really good place in movies right now where people are being given the ability to do and say the weird thing. And it's getting weird, but in a really good way. Um, I from like watching a lot of press of Dune 2 learned that the person that they said that Denis Villeneuve said was like the most often in Video Village and like trying to learn what all the cameras do was
Zendaya.
Zendaya.
She gives
So
Ray Seahorn energy in that way. Like I could like imagine
mm,
her doing that stuff.
yeah, and it's really just like I can't wait for the first thing. Like for me, Challenger's era is here is Zendaya as a leading woman and a producer. I can't wait for what her directorial debut looks like.
And I feel like she's not ready yet was an interview that I
Right.
saw her say today. And I feel like she might do like one or two, maybe three more movies where she's like acting, producing, like, but we're gonna get a Zendaya directorial debut, and I am already set for it.
Yeah, and the fact that she was in already, it's only April, and she has been in the two biggest blockbuster movies of the year so far. In
How dare
Challengers
you
and
sleep
Dune
on Kung Fu
2.
Panda 4 like that?
I I did not know of that movie's existence.
It's a solid
But
one. It's a solid one. I do
good
recommend.
good for everyone who loves Kung Fu Panda. But like you know, I'm a lot older than you are. So like I never watched Zendaya. She was not my Disney Channel era. I knew a little bit about her because of the Disney Channel and saw her like slowly working her way up to doing things. For me, it wasn't until Euphoria where she really like hit for me and I was like, "Oh, she actually is incredibly talented." Okay. Um, and then like seeing like The Greatest Showman and seeing her show up and
I still need
do
to watch
the
that.
press really, oh, it's so good.
I love the
Show her,
music. I love the scenes, but I haven't.
yeah, she's
Um,
great in it. She learns all this like trapeze work.
yeah, her and Zac Efron, I heard like did a lot of work with like learning skills. I don't know what his character does in the movie, but
Yeah, not much. Um, no, I like his character. His character doesn't have a lot going on.
okay.
Um, so like I think that I'm excited just to be in an era where we are having discussions about who the main leading lady is of our time, and that person is Zendaya.
I
You
feel
know,
like the only argument I have against Zendaya is Florence Pugh, but I think it's Zendaya's world right
and
now.
they're
And
in a movie together.
yeah,
So they're like
like,
coexisting.
is this like what people felt in the 90s with like Brad Pitt and like Leo? Like, I feel like she is our version of that era's celebrities. And like, we are
Yeah,
just like in the beginning of the Zendaya sans.
you're right.
And
Yeah.
like, I mean, she's phenomenal in the Spider-Man trilogy. She's
Hmm.
so good in everything she does. I don't know. Have you ever listened to her music? Like she is legitimately a great musician as well. Like Replay on
I've
loop.
heard that song. It's more of the like stuff she did with Labyrinth for Euphoria that I remember.
Mhm.
That it's my. I mean, I love college gymnastics. There were about 5 different college gymnastics routines that were just like Labyrinth songs, and every single time one came on, I was like, "This is my jam." Like I love everything about the ambiance and the music of that show. And so, um, you know, very like driving propulsive storyline like beats is what we got in terms of like the music for this movie. um where do you think this kind of ranks in terms of Trent and Atticus scores?
Oh, I mean, is their biggest one like the most popular ones like Social Network? Like I feel like that's number like that one is like
Yeah.
usually the one I hear as number one discussed. They did
Yes.
Whiplash too, right? No.
um
Did they do Whiplash? Whiplash composer. No, I'm sorry. That was disrespectful on my end. Um, but I think the Social Network is like their biggest one. But like honestly, like I think this might beat it because I feel like it is propulsive, as you said, and I feel like it like incorporates tennis as an instrument.
Huh.
What about
They've
you?
done some interesting things. They've done Waves, The Killer, Mank. That's that's funny. Bones and All, another Luca Guadagnino, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I mean, I would say The Social Network, but also Gone Girl.
Ooh,
Um,
yes, I did.
like, oh God, I
Oh,
love
wait.
Gone Girl so much.
He also did stuff with John Batiste for Soul, which is also an incredible
Yes,
score.
yes.
Um, and also Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem.
Uh-huh.
That movie goes hard. The soundtrack does
Oh,
go hard.
Watchmen, the 2019
The
HBO.
Yeah.
But I think The Social Network, this score, and uh Gone Girl are my favorites of their scores. It like you just know I, I just honestly feel like that's the music that actually plays whenever Zendaya walks.
Mhm.
Like that part of this process was easy for them because they didn't actually compose very much. They just like caught the sound ambiently. So that's nice for them to be able to take a break for a little bit.
Again, Zendaya is cinema. Like she like walks into the room and lives change, music happens.
Yeah.
And I do want to like say something about like the men of this movie as well. Like so like these two men like I mean Josh O'Connor does a lot of gay shit. For a straight man, he does a lot of gay shit. Um so I don't know his sexuality. I don't think he's actually like ever like spoken on like if he identifies as queer or not. So,
No, he
but
hasn't.
he does a lot of queer things, and the fact that these two men like were comfortable doing that like means a lot. Like for my bisexual ass to like feel represented, and like I felt like Mike Faist did a really good job of like simultaneously like seeing Patrick as the guy that he wanted to be, but also the guy that he wanted to be with. Like,
Hmm.
so I feel like
Yeah.
that's something that like I've felt a lot. Like, oh, a lot of like my insecurities in my sexuality and gender is like, do I want to be you or do I want to be with you? Like, it's some
Mm.
like one of the earliest feelings that I felt like when I was in high school, like navigating through my sexuality. I felt like, especially in the high school era of this movie, like that was very evocative with these performances, especially with like Mike Face. And just like, I'm just so happy that there's this movie. Like for years, I've been like dying, like, for like some sort of bi man representation. And like, we got it when we got it good. This movie did not flop, which I'm so happy about.
Yeah. Really surpassing some of my wildest expectations, honestly. I didn't know what this movie was going to be based on what we got about it. I feel like my expectations were subverted several times, but in very positive ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would like to name a dog Tashi Duncan. Um,
Ooh, that's a great name.
isn't that a great name for a little
How many
puppy?
babies will be named Tashi in the next few years?
I hope at least 10.
Yes, the new Arya
Yeah.
Stark.
The new Khaleesi.
Yes.
Um, people like having to explain to their children like why they name them things years later. I feel like we can make a TikTok like series about this.
One of my friends, Carlin, she is named after her parents were big George Carlin fans.
Really? She's
Yeah.
named after George Carlin.
Yes. Spelled
Her name
differently,
is
but that's how.
Carlin.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. She's great. I'm obsessed with her. She's a great friend. But yeah, no, then that's every time I'm thinking like, oh, you have to explain. Like, I will name my child Tashi Duncan. Tashi
Uh-huh.
Duncan, full first and last name.
Yep. Tashi Marie
um
Duncan. Yeah, just adding
uh
whatever name fits in the middle.
I mean, she was Marie in Malcolm and Marie.
She was. That we
Yeah.
don't speak about that one.
Okay. One of the blemishes on Zendaya's resume.
Seriously, we don't talk
Yeah.
about it.
Um, but anyways, like, and then also like this whole movie is like an allegory for sex and romance. Like the ending is literally like a tennis orgasm. Like
Mhm.
that, like it's layered upon layered. Like Luca, props to you, sir. Props to you, Zendaya. Props to this cast and crew. Thank you for giving us this art. Are there any other themes that you noticed that you like were like, oh, I need to discuss this? Or like, do you want to start winding things down?
I think we could start winding things down. I think that you know, one of the things I will talk about just really quickly is I've been saying the tragic nature of Tashi Duncan. For me, that's just all of that lost potential that was so clear and shining bright for everyone to see. And a lot of it is just about watching youth, kind of like the parts of life that takes the youth out of you, and
Yeah.
having that be like an experience with an injury like that being a very, very difficult one. um I was worried for her character though, because she's not written to have any friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I did notice
everyone
that.
works for her or is her mom.
Or is
So,
in love with her.
or is in love
Yeah.
with her. Right.
Yeah, we don't see her have any friends. We don't see any of them have friends other than each other. Like, we really don't know
Yeah,
much about them outside of their, like, love triangle.
that's very true.
Um,
Um I mean, I just thought that, Zendaya talking about this in an interview, just not ever having the chance to mourn something that you lost that meant so much to you, and that the only way that you find that you can cope with that and continue through like this unbearable existence of not having that talent anymore is to try to attach yourself to someone else's talent. But then when you start to see that they're falling downhill, like every athlete will do, or they're losing interest in the sport, you start losing interest in them as a person. So
yeah.
again, it's a relationship. Like, Tashi has always viewed tennis to be a relationship, and it doesn't give me any surprises that either of her relationships would be contingent on them being good at tennis and being able to show her that.
Yeah, the humanity of this film and, like, how wrapped up you can be in, like, a hyperfixation of, like, one path, one item is, like, your whole focus, which is, like, part of why I really was drawn to her at the start is, like, "Oh, no, I might not be a tennis player forever. I'm gonna go to Stanford and get a degree and still play tennis there," but then, like, when you're like you said, her career was cut short, and it's a tragedy for her character. But like then she's like, okay, how can I feel fulfilled? Well, let me surround myself by my husband, who's a tennis player, by this world of tennis. Let me like be everything with it, and like the humanity of the task, like to stay connected to things that might not be the most positive for you, like might be damaging to your mental health, but like there's still like a sex and a passion with it that like you like it's a toxic relationship of its own,
Yeah,
like her
exactly.
relationship with tennis, and like it's a breeding ground for other toxic relationships of her life. So I don't know, it's just like fascinating. Like I feel like there could be like academic papers written about this film,
I
and there should
agree.
be. Like
Definitely.
maybe I'll be the one who writes it. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. But LaTonya, what else is going on with you? Is there where can the people keep up with you? And then also besides challengers, what is a pop culture thing that everyone should be consuming if they're not already?
Um I am just starting a show on Netflix called The Dead Boy Detectives.
Okay.
And it is dark in a lot of the ways that I enjoy my television. I believe it is based off of a Neil Gaiman property, and I have loved all of those so far. I think there's even a tie-in to the Sandman universe. I definitely like, this was just because I'm old, not because it was bad. I fell asleep my first time trying to watch the first episode. And so I'm gonna go back and tonight and like start watching. I've been really into that. Under the Bridge, which is a show on Hulu, um, that I've been really enjoying right now, about a missing 14-year-old girl. And Lily Gladstone plays the detective that takes up the case
They're
opposite
just incredible at everything
Riley
they do.
Keough. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I love them so much. Like, I was really, after you get someone like a Lily Gladstone, who should have won that Oscar,
Uh-huh.
um, a breakthrough career moment like that, you wonder what their resume is going to look like, because people have won or come close to winning Academy Awards and then done some wild things. But this seems like a steadily run, well cast um, story about women of color and like who goes missing and what that means for different populations. So that has been exciting to watch. And I've also just started watching RuPaul's Drag Race.
You've never seen it before.
I had not.
This is such a LaTonya show.
It is.
What season are you watching?
Right now, I'm about to start season 8.
Oh, that's a great one. Okay.
Is it? Okay.
I think you're gonna really love. Like, I can think of 3 queens already that you're gonna be obsessed with.
Okay, good. Or did I already watch season 8? So I started watching Trixie and Katya.
Okay, that's season 7. Yeah.
Okay, so I've seen that season. So I guess I'll be starting 8. So I started watching Trixie and Katya. Just like I started watching their like Love is Blind video. Like Love is Blind videos. Like all them commenting about Netflix programs, saying get Bob Netflix on the line, and like calling each other Mary, and like just really thinking that was funny. So I started with their season, and then based on some people from Twitter, they were like, no, go back and watch from the beginning. So I did.
Okay, so you've seen seasons 1 through 7 already?
Yes.
Okay, so who are your favorites? Because this is very important to me.
Let's see.
Like, I'll give you some of my favorites from that era. I mean, Alaska. There's Latrice in that era.
Jujubee is great.
Jujubee. Oh my god, Jujubee. I love Jujubee.
I love there is this one.
You can describe them. I can probably figure it out.
Lestranza Eleganza.
Laganja Estranja?
Laganja Estranja?
Yes, she's such a mess. Gosh. I love her.
I was just like, how is that a name? The guy who was like a club kid, like an actual club kid, and was still doing drag looks that were very much it's like a 40-year-old black man.
Ornacia?
Yes.
Not Ornacia. What was it? Vivacious?
What, the one who came with like the
doll,
the doll head on top?
Yeah, that's Ornacia. Vivacious, I think, is the queen that has Ornacia.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, there are lots of people to remember. But I don't know. I've just been like really enjoying it. It's one of those shows where it's obviously very inclusive, and it's celebrating something that to me I have no experience with, but I've always admired from afar. And now I want to go to drag brunch.
Oh my god. I love that for you. I feel like you would love Drag Brunch. I feel like I'm surprised that you hadn't seen it before, because it seems like such a show that you would enjoy, especially based on like the community you surround yourself with. Like I'm surprised Mike Bloom never told you to watch Drag Race if he hasn't.
We haven't had the in-depth what I should be watching on reality TV discussion yet. He's been more enjoying how organically I've been finding things.
Yeah.
And then we like discuss it based on that. So that's been really cool.
But I could talk about reality TV for days, and I feel like Drag Race is just like such like, for the most part, you get lighthearted Drag Race, like lighthearted, goofy fun, some unhinged moments of like, how is this happening? Like, and like some of the earlier seasons have some like uglier stuff, but I feel like usually these days, like Drag Race,
there's a lot of racism.
Yeah, I feel like these days it's like, outside of the fan community, the show itself proper is very like celebratory and inclusive. Whereas like the fan community is one of the most toxic fan communities.
Of course it is.
Yeah, but that's not LaTonya. LaTonya ain't on these Twitter streets.
Like so that. What am I doing? I'm doing a lot of pop cultured podcasting with you, Felipe.
Yeah.
So Pop Cultured is a podcast that's going to be up soon. It's going to be occupying the Versus feed for those of you all who are from Versus. And Versus will continue for House of the Dragon season 2 versus Game of Thrones season 2. So I'm excited about that. I'm doing some podcasting over at Silent Podcast because I get to do some scripted stuff over there too. That's been very exciting. Naomi Calhoun and I are covering the HBO, the Max show, The Sympathizer. And it is really good so far. The cast is really great. I was recently on the Recap Kickback talking about a terrible movie that I do not recommend.
I listened to that podcast. You were great on it.
Thank you.
You were great on the podcast, at least.
Thank you. It's called the American Society of, I almost said the American Society of Tortured Poets. That is not it. It is, in fact, the American Society of Magical Negroes. Not a great movie, but I had a great time talking to Chappelle and Mari about it. So you can check me out there. You can also check me out every week doing the Top Chef Wrap Up with Haley and Kurt. That has been a lot of fun and just like chaotic in the best way. So please follow me. Like, there's more stuff coming. I promise you, and I want you to be there for it. But the best way to do that is to follow me online, so I can tell you where to go. So you can follow me on Twitter at LK Starks. You can follow me on TikTok at LaTonya K Starks, or you can follow me on Instagram at Stormborn1222. Twitter at LK Starks is the main place where you'll be getting all your news about when podcasts are happening, things like that. But I didn't go anywhere, and hopefully you didn't either. And we're just going to be making some new friends along the way. So I'm excited to be here.
I have told you privately, I think you are one of the best voices to listen to about anything. You are not only very insightful and critical, like in terms of analysis, but you bring like the goofiness and you can bring the seriousness when you need to. And like you are like a triple threat in terms of podcasting.
Aww,
like those are the
Felipe.
types of podcasters I most love listening to. And I'm excited to collaborate with you and help you get the platform that you deserve to talk about the things that you're passionate about, because you watch a bucket load of movies and TV shows, and we need your commentary on more stuff. And like, I don't even know how you have the time to keep up with everything, because you watch like 5 shows at once. Like, and like, I remember I sent you the links. I sent you like the links to Australian Survivor, like the first 6 episodes. And by like the morning the next day, you were like, I need more. I was like,
it was a problem. Like, so I would like to thank Felipe and also the Academy for introducing me. Yeah, I will thank Ferris for the rest of my days, if that's what he wants. I would like to thank Felipe for introducing me to Australian Survivor, where I instantly fell in love with Ferris, like down bad immediately, and then did not shut up about him for the entirety of a relationship.
And listen, Ferris. Let me go back to watching Challengers before I get too emotional about Ferris, because
there's too much to say. But like, yeah, I love a lot of different types of things, and now I feel like I get to do what I want to do. And some of that stuff is going to include, you know, some prestige TV discussions. Some of it is going to include some good old versus stuff. Some of it is going to be, you know, like doing an additional House of the Dragon podcast. Like, there's stuff that's going to happen, and a plan is being brought together for it, and it's going to get rolled out to you in a way that makes sense. But just wanted to give everybody a heads up that we're here. We here for you. We're just out here.
Like, the vehicles are already in motion. It's just a matter of like, it's gonna get out to you. It's just a matter of when, not if. Like, it's just coming to you all as soon as possible. LaTonya and I have a big week ahead of us next week, so but I'm sure we will like get this stuff out as soon as possible. I'm just excited to hang out with LaTonya next week in person.
Yay.
Like, LaTonya, maybe LaTonya will be like, I don't know, I don't want to hang out with you anymore after like the shenanigans.
Not true. No, I can't wait. You're like one of the people I'm most looking forward to seeing. I can't believe we've never gotten to meet. I'm very glad that we get to do podcasts like this together. Like, this was so much fun. Let's do way more of this.
A hoot and holler. We are like pro tennis players. We are serving it up all different types of way, but we have our distinct things. Like you, House Starks, we're ready for it. And we'll just like serve the ball back and forth, podcasting back and forth about so many stuff. I'm so excited for the opportunity to collaborate with you more, and I cannot wait to do more stuff with you. In terms of me, just follow me at What the Fleep on all social media. Brazilian Dragon is also something you can follow me on Instagram. That's where I promote all the podcasts. Go subscribe to us on YouTube. Shout out to Freddy Luna for the Brazilian Dragon podcast logo. And just subscribe, give us 5-star ratings and reviews to help more people find the podcast, get to know these incredible tennis player podcasters that we are. So just keep subscribed to get all future episodes. We're going to be back. I took a little bit break for podcasting for some personal reasons, but now we're getting back into it now that I have my feet back in front of me, and I'm excited to do more shenanigans. Who knows what's in store for us, but I know we're going to have a good time doing it. In terms of me, my pop culture plug is the Challengers movie. Go watch it. And LaTonya, thank you so much for joining me. I loved this conversation. I love this movie, and I love you.
I love you too. I'm very happy to be here. We make good choices.
We make good choices, yes. And until next time, everybody, obrigado for listening, and we'll see you at the next Challengers match. Goodbye.